The moon hung low in the sky, a silver crescent slipping beneath the horizon like a scimitar into its scabbard. The air reeked of damp earth and decay, the very scent of autumn's demise. In the heart of the whispering woods, where trees twisted like arthritic fingers, Caleb's boots scuffed against the loam. He'd been walking for hours, the weight of his pack digging into his shoulders like a yoke. A faint hum, like the whisper of a razor's edge, echoed through the trees. Caleb's eyes, sunken and dark as a well, darted toward the sound. His hand instinctively went to the worn leather satchel slung over his shoulder, where the weight of his grandfather's journal pressed against his hip. The hum grew louder, a thrumming that vibrated through the air, and Caleb's pulse quickened, a primal excitement coursing through his veins. He pushed aside the curtain of branches, and the clearing unfolded before him like a dark velvet cloak. In the center, a figure stood, shrouded in shadows, their back to Caleb. The hum emanated from them, a living, breathing entity that seemed to seep from their very pores. Caleb's breath caught in his throat as the figure slowly turned, their face a death's mask of creased skin and sunken eyes that burned with an otherworldly intensity. The figure's gaze locked onto Caleb, and he felt the weight of their attention like a physical touch, a cold finger tracing the outline of his skull. The hum grew louder still, until it was almost deafening, a living presence that seemed to reverberate through every cell in Caleb's body. He took a step forward, his feet moving of their own accord, as if drawn by some unseen force. The figure raised a hand, and Caleb felt his heart stutter, his breath catching in his throat. In that gesture, he saw a familiarity, an echo of his grandfather's movements, the same deliberate, almost ritualistic precision. The figure's eyes seemed to bore into Caleb's very soul, as if searching for something hidden deep within his marrow. Suddenly, the hum ceased, leaving an oppressive silence in its wake. The figure's mask-like face seemed to ripple, as if the skin itself was shifting, reforming into a new configuration. Caleb's stomach twisted, a cold dread creeping up his spine, as the figure's mouth opened, revealing a void of darkness that seemed to swallow all light around it. "Welcome, Caleb," the figure whispered, the voice like a sigh on the wind, a sound that echoed through the hollows of Caleb's mind. "I have been waiting for you." The words hung in the air, heavy with an unspoken significance that sent shivers coursing down Caleb's spine. He felt a creeping sense of unease, as if he was being slowly unwrapped, layer by layer, like a mummy shedding its wrappings. The figure's gaze seemed to hold him suspended, a fly trapped in amber, as it took another step forward. Caleb's hand instinctively went to the satchel, his fingers brushing against the worn cover of his grandfather's journal. The memories came flooding back, the late-night stories, the whispered secrets, the cryptic warnings. His grandfather's words echoed in his mind, a mantra of fear and fascination. "They'll come for you, Caleb. When the time is right, they'll come for you." The figure's eyes seemed to bore deeper, as if it could see the very fabric of Caleb's thoughts unraveling. The air was heavy with anticipation, a sense of expectation that hung like a guillotine's blade, poised to drop. Caleb's heart raced, a drumbeat in his chest, as the figure's hand extended, a bony finger beckoning him closer. "Come, Caleb," the figure whispered, the voice like a sigh on the wind. "Come, and I will show you the secrets your grandfather dared not speak." Caleb's feet seemed to move of their own accord, drawn to the figure with an inexorable force. He felt like a marionette on strings, his limbs jerking to the rhythm of an unseen puppeteer. The figure's eyes never left his, holding him enthralled like a rabbit in the gaze of a serpent. As he drew closer, the air grew thick with an otherworldly presence, a palpable force that vibrated through every cell in his body. Caleb's skin crawled, his mind reeling with the implications of what was unfolding before him. The figure's hand closed around his wrist, the touch cold and dry as bone. "Your grandfather knew the truth," the figure whispered, the words dripping with an unholy intimacy. "He knew the secrets that lie beyond the veil of the mundane world. Secrets that I will impart to you, Caleb, if you are willing to pay the price." The woodsy atmosphere seemed to close in around them, the trees leaning in like sentinels guarding ancient mysteries. Caleb felt the weight of the forest's gaze upon him, as if the very land itself was watching him, waiting to see if he would take the next step. The figure's grip tightened, pulling Caleb closer, until their faces were inches apart. The eyes that stared back at him were not human, but something older, something that had witnessed the birth of civilizations and the decay of empires. The eyes seemed to suck the air out of Caleb's lungs, leaving him gasping for breath. The world around him grew distant, a faint hum of reality that barely penetrated the fog of terror that enveloped him. The figure's breath whispered against his ear, a cold breeze that sent shivers down his spine. "You have been chosen, Caleb," the figure whispered, the words dripping with an unholy reverence. "Chosen to inherit the legacy of your grandfather, to unlock the secrets that have been hidden for so long. Are you prepared to pay the price, to surrender to the darkness that lurks within?" Caleb's mind reeled, his thoughts tumbling through a maze of confusion and fear. He felt like a leaf blown on the winds of madness, helpless to resist the forces that buffeted him. The figure's grip on his wrist tightened, a cold, unforgiving pressure that seemed to draw the very life force from his veins. As he gazed into the abyss of the figure's eyes, Caleb felt the threads of his sanity begin to unravel. The world around him grew darker, the shadows deepening into chasms that seemed to swallow all light and reason. He was suspended on the precipice of a void, staring into the face of madness itself. And yet, despite the terror that gripped him, Caleb felt an inexplicable longing, a morbid fascination that drew him closer to the abyss. He felt himself leaning forward, his lips inches from the figure's ear, as if drawn by some macabre curiosity. "Show me," he whispered, the words torn from his lips like a confession. "Show me the secrets that lie beyond." The figure's mouth twisted into a macabre grin, the lips curling upward like a reptile's smile. The eyes seemed to blaze with an otherworldly intensity, as if fed by some dark, ancient power. Caleb felt himself being pulled into that gaze, sucked down into a vortex of madness and despair. The air around them began to ripple, as if reality itself was warping and distending. The trees leaned in, their branches tangling above them like skeletal fingers. The wind picked up, a mournful sigh that seemed to carry the whispers of the damned. "Very well, Caleb," the figure whispered, the voice like a rusty gate creaking in the wind. "I shall show you the secrets that lie beyond. But be warned, once you gaze upon the abyss, there is no turning back. The darkness will claim you, body and soul." The figure's hand tightened around Caleb's wrist, a cold, unyielding grip that seemed to draw the life force from his veins. The world around them began to blur, the colors bleeding together like watercolors on wet paper. Caleb felt himself being pulled through a veil of reality, into a realm where the laws of sanity no longer applied. The figure's eyes seemed to burn brighter, a beacon guiding him deeper into the abyss. As they descended into the void, Caleb caught glimpses of forbidden knowledge, shards of truth that pierced his mind like ice picks. He saw ancient civilizations, their ruins hidden beneath the waves of time. He saw rituals performed in forgotten tongues, and the horrors that lurked beyond the veil of reality. And in the center of it all, Caleb saw the figure, a dark messiah guiding him through the labyrinth of madness, promising to reveal the secrets that lay beyond the limits of human endurance.